everyone. Hello, welcome to the Secure the Bag Book Club broadcast for this evening. My name is Brooke Brown, and I am the facilitator of this wonderful group, this experience. I'm so glad you're here. If you're here live, go ahead and shout yourself out in the chat. Would love to know who's tuning in tonight. And yeah, we've got some new people on the channel. Welcome. Thank you for subscribing. Really appreciate you. One thing I want to point out, and give me a shout to make sure that you guys can hear me okay, because we had technical difficulty once and never again. Okay. So one thing I want to point out is that I'm not a guru. I am not an expert. Yes, I work in finance, but I am just as much a learner and just beginner as you are. So the information that we talk about is to show how self-education translates into real wealth building. Each month, we pick a book meant to grow and protect your wealth. And some examples of books that we have discussed include a book on intellectual property. So that's things like trademarks, patents, copyrights. We've talked about buying art, fine art. We've talked about tax planning and being proactive about that. And then we've also, this month, we're talking about investing in the stock market. So I'm really glad you're here. And there's a lot of information to discuss. But this is going to be kind of a wrap-up conversation because we have been through this really incredible journey together where we've talked about the importance of many aspects of this strategy called value investing. So the book that we're talking about is Invested. It's by Danielle Town and Phil Town. So they're a father-daughter duo. And what do we need to recap from this book? First, and I would just like to also point out one more housekeeping thing is that the schedule for next month and the book that we're selecting next month, which I'll announce at the end of the stream, is also going to be on my website, www.whatbrooksspent.com/events. Okay. What did we talk about in this book, right? Because it's been a while since we're starting all the way from the beginning, right? So one of the things that we talked about, or she talked about in the book, was instead of hoarding her money, right, which can make you fall victim to the power of inflation and the lessening of your buying power with the same amount of money, the more that time goes on. So instead of hoarding or abdicating, which is basically, just hoisting the responsibility onto another professional and letting them handle it, we are learning to utilize a strategy called value investing. And it's on page, it was popularized by the big time investors, Benjamin Graham and Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. And I'm going to read verbatim what the strategy is. It's on page 13 in chapter 1, right? So it says, buy a wonderful company when it is a bargain, and only when you are certain that it will be worth more 10 years from now than it is today. Then wait, sometimes for years, as the company does what wonderful companies do, becomes more valuable over time. Be so confident that you now own a great company that even if the stock price goes down, you don't worry and you stay with it until it goes back up. And ideally, you never sell. That's how you don't lose money, as the rule number 1 investing strategy talks about. Okay, so the premise of the book is Danielle is this she's a startup lawyer, but she's like not really happy with the way that her life is going as far as like professionally, and just she's feeling burnt out. She's like, what do I do? I need to be able to, make a living, but something's got to give. So anyway, she talks to her dad, and her dad's like, I've been meaning to try and teach you about investing. You want to try? And so she gives this like year of like working with her dad, who's a very celebrated investor. And she's like, all right, I'm going to get so confident in my investing that or in my investing practice is what she calls it, that I'm going to be able to be invested in a company's mission, in their management, so the leadership, think talking about the CEO, CFO, all those people, being invested in moats, what's called moats, right? So that's that competitive protection that companies have, whether it be their brand or their intellectual property, on and on it goes, right? Which we've talked about in previous broadcasts, right? Then she talks about being invested in the math, right? So there's a good few chapters, right, where you have to sit down with that book and a highlighter and maybe some flashcards, and you have to be like, all right, here we go. We're going to learn about, earnings per share and owners' earnings, and we're going to learn about the buyback method of valuation and all those kinds of wonderful jargon that, when we first started this thing, we were intimidated by. And now I think we've got it, right? Let me know in the chat if you guys feel that way. If you feel a lot more confident, if you're like, you know what, this is not so scary after all, because I know I feel that way. That's the truth, right? So speaking of the math, right? She talked about valuation of a company. She talked about deciding what is a too good price to pay or to miss out on when it comes to figuring out when you're going to actually make that move to buy shares in a company. She talked about crafting a I love this company story. That's what I'm calling it. The I love this company story, where you're just arguing the case for, like, you know what, I think they, will stick around in 10 years. I think they'll be juggernaut in the industry. I think that they can weather any kind of adverse, event. And then on the flip side, right? So you have this, I love this company. I really want to invest in it. And then you also invert the story and you say to yourself, okay, devil's advocate, what could go wrong with this company? What things, are there blind spots? Are there, ways that they may or may not be able to weather a storm in the market that is going to cause them to, experience some volatility as far as the value of the company is concerned. And all of this is to our advantage, right? Because so the advantage we now have, it couldn't be summed up better than on this page. I'm going to turn to page 53, okay? On page 53, right? It says, think of the benefits of learning about investing as much more than being able to invest on your own. You would have a true wealth of knowledge to draw on for any kind of investing, real estate, or buying a private business, for example. You can always abdicate if you do after learning the rule number 1 principles, right? So rule number 1, which is the value investing, which is to buy, a wonderful company at a bargain. You'll know how to evaluate fund managers. You'll know how to tell if they're good or if they're Bernie Madoff, right? Scam alert. And you'll have enough money to get a good one interested. I love that. I love that so much. That sums up what we've been working on in not just this book, but in the past other books, right? Where we don't want to get got. We want to be well researched when it comes to acquiring assets and acquiring them at preferably the best price possible, right? So again, I want to ask, how are we feeling about this topic? My personal favorite topic in the book was the circle of competence. You all remember that exercise where it was like things I'm passionate about, things I make money in, and I forgot the third one right now, but yeah, this like Venn diagram of like, these are the things that I have a short about it. So go ahead on my YouTube page and check out the short about the circle of competence. It's an exercise that the book outlines, and it's really good to be able to kind of start you somewhere where you're just like, okay, all the companies in all the stock market exchanges, which one is going to, or which industry am I going to focus in on, or which kinds of companies am I going to focus in on, right? Am I going to research railroad companies, or am I going to research food companies, or beauty, healthcare? What companies are you going to be comfortable and interested in, right? So it's not just about like, I know a little something about it, but I also like, I'm passionate about it. It lights me up when I'm researching, doing this research, right? It reads like gossip, right? So I wanted to also talk about what we are going to do next. So she talks about having an investment practice throughout the book. right? Things like, subscribing to publications that talk about financial news, right? Reading Warren Buffett's shareholder letters to his shareholders, Berkshire Hathaway shareholders, and all these, wonderful ways that we can explore the material. And I think that I'm going to do a couple of things, and I'm sharing them with you, not because you need to do it, because this is not an investment advice, but it's something that I was like, I think I can do that, right? So one thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to subscribe not to the Wall Street Journal, the like publication, the news paper or whatever, not that, because I don't know if I'm fully ready to commit. But what I am committed to, because I love podcasts, they have a Wall Street Journal podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to that and get familiar with the language, get familiar with how people are talking about the markets and the ups and swings and downs and what companies are hot and all that kind of stuff, so that I can feel more comfortable being in the know and in those circles and talking shop with people who already understand it. And now I know a little something about it too, because I read the book. Okay. So what else is next? Another thing, we talked about voting voting on a mission, right? So whether it's buying organic food because you believe in ethical and fair trade and in our foodways, right? Or things like, body positivity in the clothes sizes, having inclusive clothes sizes, or having inclusive, shades of makeup, and in publicly traded companies, things like that, right? Things that we're just like, you know what? I can get behind that. That's a cause that I care about, right? They called that in the book, they called it our mission. So go ahead and shout out in the comments, or if you're watching later, in the comments, or in the live chat if you're viewing now, some missions that you can like definitely get behind. Some missions, like things like if you're like anti guns, then you wouldn't want to invest in, Smith and Wesson. Or is that Smith and Wesson? I think. Anyways, shows how much I know about guns. Or, things like you believe in education, right? So you'll invest your dollars in a company that values education too, or may donate to charitable causes that relate to education. So it's things like that we're just like, we already, make a vote of confidence in a company with our dollars. So in keeping with that, we can also invest in, literally straightforwardly invest in a publicly traded company that we believe in, whose cause we believe in, whose industry we understand, whose competitive advantage seems really strong, and it's at is selling at a price that is reasonable relative to the valuation of the company, which I know sounds like a lot to do and everything. And I know we're all busy. I know we have, a lot of obligations, and sitting down trying to pour over a financial report, not a financial report, a financial statement, or an annual report, or a 10K, all those things. You're just like, I just wanted to buy a stock. I can relate. Diane Michelle in the chat says, like PETA supporters, avoid Tyson Foods. Yes, that's exactly the kind of rationale behind investing in a mission versus avoiding a certain industry or a certain type of company because of their lack of mission that you can connect to. So that's exactly a great example. So so the next steps for you might be, maybe opening that brokerage account, which is the official account that you'll need in order to invest in the stock market. And there was information about that in the book. So go ahead and take a look into the chapter that shared that. I think they actually highlighted it in the index of the chapter. So go ahead and read that. And just in general, I want you guys to always go back to the video from last week, where I just gave this heartfelt plea about making sure that you guys feel comfortable in learning, and being beginners and understanding the material, and knowing that you can be, one day very consciously competent, as the word or as the book talked about. That's the phrase that they talked about, right? Being consciously competent as opposed to unconsciously incompetent, which is where we probably started. You don't know what you don't know, but now we know. We know a little something, something. So that's exciting. Okay, so let's get to the final order of business, which is talking about next month's February's book of the month. So I know you guys have been chomping at the bit to learn about real estate because I have, right? And there's many ways that you can go about investing in real estate. You don't have to have a $20,000 down payment for a single family home in an up and coming neighborhood in order to invest in real estate. I picked this book, How to Invest in Real Estate, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Getting Started. It's by Bigger Pockets Publishing, which is the authority on the internet as it relates to books about real estate investing and all the flavors that come with it. It is by Joshua Dorkin and Brandon Turner. And I have split it up into 4 parts because we have 4 weeks. I'm going to let you know that we're not doing the introduction and we're not doing chapter 9. So the schedule is on the website, which I shared at the beginning of this, and it's also down in the description of this video. And last but not least, the Spotify playlist, which is also linked in the description. It has all of the audiobooks. If you're a Spotify premium subscriber, we have all the books, all the audiobooks that we have selected to this point, including next month's book. So if you want access to all the books, they are there. That's one of the criteria that I have for picking the next book that we talk about, is making sure that it's available on Spotify Premium, because I think that's the most accessible platform of all the rest of them. And it's just convenient. So there you go. Diane said, great phrasing, consciously competent. Absolutely. I thought that was really brilliant myself. So there you go. There you go. So let me know in the comments if you guys are excited about next month's talk. We're talking about how to invest in real estate and all the flavors and strategies and things that you want to be aware of and watch out for in the book club next month. Make sure you check the website for the schedule. Make sure you're following me if you're on TikTok at Secure the Bag Brooke, because I talk about commentary throughout the week leading up to the next stream. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel, which I assume that you already are because you're here, but you could be just checking it out and haven't made that commitment. So go ahead, make that move. Hit the subscribe button and the like button so that people can know that people really appreciate this live. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me once again. And I'm so happy and so proud of this, movement that we're making. We are preparing ourselves for our great windfall, or our next time that we're going to have extra money, because I'm believing for it, for each and every one of you. And so make sure you tell the others. Have a good evening, y'all.